in Canmore there in Crozon's Pass, it's all steam coal. In East Cooley and Drumheller in that valley, it was all bituminous. Okay, so and that bituminous, you pile it too high and it'll crumble, and then besides that, it'll just burst into flame, internal combustion, eh?
You get a slag heap going.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's why when they had the rock piles and they were dumping them off the side of the hill, like, you know, and that was constantly burning.
Yeah.
And it burned for a long time after.
Wasn't there always the smell in the air?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Sulfuric smell, you know, just like sulfur was burning. And that valley would just fill full of smoke.
Yeah.
So the mine, the coal that was mined in Drumheller Valley, what was it? Was that used for the railways, or was that for
yeah,
heating?
some of it. Some of it was used for the engine, some of them for coal, the home heating. A lot of it was shipped to Calgary here. A lot of it was shipped as far as Winnipeg and Vancouver for heating. Yeah.
It was good heating coal, because boy, it was nice, warm, dry kind of heat in the house when you had the and of course there was no central heating in a lot of our houses either. It was the coal stove in the kitchen and a heater in the living room.
Yeah.
And it was good heat.
Yeah, and besides that, you know, it also depended on the type, on how much percentage of rock was in your coal. That's impurities. The higher the rock content, the more clinkers you're going to get. Eh? So they went after anybody that can produce maybe 2 to 3% of impurities in the coal. That's the one that they wanted the most.
For the contract.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So when you had to move yourself and others, you had to move, say, from Drumheller or Newcastle, you had to go to Canmore. Was there housing there? There was the same as in Drumheller, pretty much?
Yeah, there was company houses. Government paid my dad, or helped my dad to move from East Cooley to Canmore. And me, I had to get everything myself. And the wife and I, we moved into the house that was condemned, and I rolled up my sleeves and got it all fixed up nice, you know, and everything else. Then it was a 2-story building close to the mine and everything else. At one time, you didn't need very much education, you know. All you have to be is just proud of what you are. And
ingenuity.
Well, that too, definitely. I mean, you've got to be strong to stand on your own 2 feet.
I think that was true of all the miners in Drumheller. They had to be very strong people. Because there was a lot of adversity for those people to start with. I think, for one thing, there was a lot of bias and prejudice in the community, a lot. I mean, Drumheller,
especially against immigrants.
Against immigrants, and particularly Slavic immigrants.
Yes, yeah.
Eastern European people, Russians, Ukrainians, Poles.
They had a very favorite name they used to call us.
Yes.
Yeah, what would that be?
We were bohunks.
Bohunks,
yeah.
That was the name that they gave us.
Yep.
So were the Slavic people in a minority in Drumheller, or? So it
I
wasn't.
don't think so much that they were a minority. I think they were resourceful.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the Anglo-Saxons were a little bit envious that these people came and were hardworking and made do with what they had to do. They went into the mines and worked, but they also probably had a vegetable garden that they grew and
chickens and geese and ducks.
Exactly, and chickens and cows and things like this. And so they were resourceful in that regard too, that they looked after themselves. They weren't depending on anybody else to give them milk or give them eggs, because when I was growing up, we had cows. My brother was responsible for delivering milk. We had chickens. We had a garden.
Yeah.
My parents were caretakers of the school, and my dad worked in the mine.
Mhm.
All that. And that's the way it was for most people.
You pretty much did whatever it took, eh?
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's
And
exactly
you
what
never
it was.
waited. You never waited for anybody to give you something. You know.
No.
You
no.
just went out there.
You went
and
out
hustled
and
the
dug
bug
and did what you had to do.
Yeah.
So
For
when
yourself.
when the mines started to close down in Drumheller, what did you do?
It was an unspoken law in our household that we were going to university. My younger sister and myself. I mean, that's all there was to it. There was an unwritten law that we were going to university. My dad did not finish school. He got to maybe grade 4. His father said that I'm the son of a slave and my son's not going to get an education. So my father was forbidden to go to school back in Europe. So that's what sent him to Canada. My father was working on his own back in Europe at the age of 7. And so he came to Canada and he said, my children are going to school. And that was, as I say, the unspoken law. So both my sister and I came here to university, and my mom and dad stayed in the valley, and they market gardened. My mom and dad had a huge, huge market garden, and my mother was renowned for her flowers and bedding out plants. And they were renowned for the vegetables that they grew, especially peppers and tomatoes.
They got a blacksmith there, so I'm with blacksmith and telling them how important the blacksmith was to the coal mining community. Eh? I mean, you got to think, well, what's he got to do that is so important? But they forgetting all of our tools were sharpened by the blacksmith. The picks were constantly sharpened with heat, and they were tempered on the ends like. He did all kinds of things. Any tool that you wanted to design, you just explained to the blacksmith, and they made it for you. No problem. And like I say, they were very important.
And there were earlier days when those blacksmiths had to make shoes for the ponies.
That's right.
True.
Because
Yeah.
the ponies were
That's
were underground and they stayed there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, they usually brought them out for a couple
Couple
weeks.
weeks.
Yeah.
But they
out
were
of the whole year.
always half blind.
Yeah.